For about 30 years, the most American thing you could do in a roadside motel was drop a quarter into a little metal box and let the magic fingers vibrating bed buzz you to sleep. That bed was the invention of a man named John Houghtaling, and in 1958, he changed the American road trip forever. If you traveled the highways of this country in the 1960s or 70s, you knew it the moment you walked into the room. A small gray box bolted to the nightstand, with a coin slot on top and a few words printed across the front promising relaxation. You put in your quarter, you lay back, and the whole bed began to hum and tremble beneath you for 15 glorious minutes. It was strange, it was wonderful, it was a little bit ridiculous, and for a whole generation of American travelers, the Magic Fingers bed is one of the warmest memories the road ever gave them. And they competed by promising comfort and novelty, air conditioning, a television in every room, a glowing swimming pool, ice machines down the hall, a Bible in the drawer, and a mint on the pillow. Anything to make a weary traveler choose your sign over the one down the road. The motel was selling a little slice of luxury to people who didn't have much, and into that world walked a man with one of the oddest ideas anyone ever made a fortune on. His name was John Houghtaling, and he was exactly the kind of restless American tinkerer who built the roadside age. In the 1950s, Houghtaling had been selling vibrating mattress pads for the Englander Mattress Company, the kind with a motor built right in, sold as a health and relaxation gadget. But the built-in motors were expensive, they broke down, and they made the whole mattress cost a fortune. So Houghtaling sat down at his kitchen table in Glen Rock, New Jersey, and asked a simple question. What if you didn't build the motor into the mattress at all? What if you just clamped a small vibrating motor onto the frame of any ordinary bed and let it shake the whole thing? He tinkered until it worked, and in 1958 he had it. A cheap little unit that could turn any bed in America into a vibrating bed. He gave it a name that promised exactly what it delivered: Magic Fingers. The device itself was beautifully simple. A small motor was attached to the box spring underneath the mattress, and it was wired to a coin-operated timer box, a coin meter, technically, that sat on the nightstand where you could reach it from your pillow. You dropped in 1 quarter, 2 bits, and the box gave you about 15 minutes of gentle vibration before it clicked off on its own. The little box made its pitch right there on the front, promising that Magic Fingers would give you a wonderful feeling of relaxation and ease, that it would melt away the tension of the long day's drive and carry you off into a tingling, soothing rest. For 25 cents after 400 miles of highway, that was a promise a lot of tired travelers were happy to buy. And the ritual was always the same. In 10,000 motel rooms a night, you'd dig a quarter out of your pocket or off the dresser, you'd find the little box on the nightstand, and you'd feed the coin into the slot. It went in with a solid clunk. Then a low electric hum would build up somewhere under the mattress, and the whole bed would come alive. A deep, steady buzz that rattled the headboard against the wall, set the glass of water trembling on the nightstand, and shook every last knot out of a body that had been folded into a car seat since dawn. It ran for about 15 minutes, the vibration sometimes fading and surging, and then, with a final little shudder, the box would click itself off, and the room would go still and quiet. And more often than not, somebody, usually one of the kids, would immediately dig out another quarter and start the whole thing up again. The box on the nightstand was a coin-operated ride you could take lying down, and nobody could resist just one more turn. And John Houghtaling had timed it perfectly, because 1950s America was already absolutely mad for vibration. The whole country somehow had gotten the idea that being shaken was good for you. Walk into any gym or any so-called reducing salon in those years, and you would find rows of those famous belt machines. A wide cloth strap you looped around your waist or your hips while a motor jiggled you back and forth, sold on the cheerful promise that the machine would simply shake the fat and the tension right off your body while you stood there. There were vibrating chairs, vibrating recliners, vibrating pillows, all sorts of buzzing contraptions sold as the very latest thing in modern health and relaxation. So when a roadside motel offered you a bed that would do the same thing for a single quarter, it did not strike anybody as strange. It seemed up to date. It seemed healthy. It seemed like the future had finally come to the little room off the highway. Magic fingers wasn't a weird idea at all in 1958. It was right on trend. But here is the part that made John Houghtaling a very rich man, because magic fingers was not really an invention. It was a business model, and a brilliant one. Houghtaling didn't sell the units to the motels outright and walk away. He set up a whole system where the boxes were installed in the rooms, and the quarters that piled up inside them were split between the motel owner and the operator. For the motel, it was almost magic of a different kind. Free money, dropping in quarter by quarter out of beds they already owned with no work at all. For Houghtaling, multiply one quarter at a time by hundreds of thousands of beds across the entire country, night after night after night, and you begin to see the fortune. At the height of it, there were 250,000 magic fingers units humming away in motel rooms across America. A man had gotten rich, one shaking bed and one quarter at a time. And keeping all those boxes fed and working took a small army. Houghtaling built a whole network of local route operators, men who drove a circuit from motel to motel with a key ring and a coin sack, unlocking the boxes, scooping out the heavy load of quarters, settling up the split with each owner, and fixing the units that had rattled a wire loose or shaken themselves half off the bed frame. It was a quiet little economy humming along underneath the roadside, invisible to the travelers who only ever saw the box on the nightstand. Naturally, competitors saw the money and rushed in with vibrating boxes of their own under all sorts of names, but it never mattered. Magic Fingers had gotten there first and gotten there biggest, and the name stuck so hard that people called every buzzing motel bed a Magic Fingers bed, the same way folks use a famous brand name for a whole kind of thing. Houghtaling hadn't just built a gadget, he had built the word for it. And the thing wormed its way so deep into the American road trip that it became a piece of the culture itself. The Magic Fingers bed turned into shorthand for the whole experience of the cheap, friendly, slightly seedy roadside motel. The buzzing bed, the flickering television, the neon sign outside the window. It showed up in songs and in television shows and in the movies. The writer Hunter Thompson made the Magic Fingers bed a running gag in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, his famous wild road book about excess and the American dream gone sideways. Comedians joked about it. It turned up in episodes of The Simpsons and The X-Files, which tells you something about how thoroughly the image had soaked into the American subconscious. Kids begged their parents for a quarter to try it, and just about everybody who ever dropped a coin in one remembers the exact strange feeling of that bed coming to life underneath them. It was kitsch, it was a gimmick, and the country absolutely loved it. For the children especially, the Magic Fingers bed was the highlight of the whole trip. To a kid, a bed that shook when you fed it a quarter was just about the most magical thing in the world. Better than the pool, better than the ice machine, a coin-operated ride right there in your own motel room. Families would pull in for the night, and the first thing the children did was scramble onto the beds and start begging for quarters. Parents quickly learned that the cheapest way to keep 3 excited kids happy after a long day in the car was to feed the box a coin and let the bed buzz them into giggles, and then, soon enough, into sleep. The thing practically ran on the energy of overtired children and pocket change. It also, like everything on the roadside, carried a slightly naughtier reputation alongside the wholesome one. A vibrating bed in a cheap motel room was exactly the kind of thing the comedians liked to wink about, and the Magic Fingers box became a little symbol of the motel's double life, wholesome family stop and low-budget hideaway at the same time. That double life, of course, had been baked into the motel's image since Alfred Hitchcock made Psycho in 1960, and the Bates Motel became the most famous roadside stop in cinema history. The buzzing box fit right into that same mythology, innocent enough for the family road trip, just suggestive enough for a laugh. That mix of the wholesome and the slightly risque is part of why the buzzing bed lodged itself so firmly in the country's memory and its sense of humor. And the box itself was a humble, friendly little thing, a small, textured metal case, usually gray or beige, no bigger than a loaf of bread, with the coin slot up top and the brand name printed across the front in cheerful, rounded lettering, alongside a few lines of printed promise about the rest and relaxation waiting inside. It was honestly designed, built to take a beating from 1,000 strangers and keep working. And that plain little box became as much a part of the roadside motel room as the Gideon Bible, placed by the Gideons International in the drawer, or the plastic ice bucket on the dresser. It belonged to a whole coin-operated America that has mostly faded away, a time when it seemed like everything had a slot for your change. From the television and the telephone to the laundry machine down the hall, a country running on nickels, dimes, and quarters. The Magic Fingers box was the cheerful king of all of it. But the Magic Fingers bed lived and died with the world that made it, and that world began to come apart. The Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, Eisenhower's great project that built the interstate highway system, had set the whole thing in motion. Those new interstates were magnificent, but they bypassed the old two-lane roads and the little towns and motels that had grown up along them. The same forces that emptied out roadside America came for the buzzing bed, too. The traffic moved to the exits of the new highways, and the independent motels that had been the box's whole kingdom started to close or fall on hard times. The coin boxes themselves became a problem. They were stuffed with quarters, which made them a target, and motel owners grew tired of guests prying them open or breaking them trying to get a free ride. The big motel chains that took over the business, your Holiday Inns, founded by Kemmons Wilson, your Motel Sixes and Best Westerns, wanted a clean, uniform, modern image, and a coin-operated vibrating box bolted to the nightstand was exactly the kind of old-fashioned roadside kitsch they wanted gone. One by one, the boxes were unplugged, unbolted, and thrown away. By the time the old Century gave way to the new one, the Magic Fingers bed had very nearly vanished. The motels that once buzzed from coast to coast went quiet. John Houghtaling, the kitchen table tinkerer who had shaken America to sleep a quarter at a time and made millions doing it, lived a long life and passed away near the end of the 2000s, an authentic and almost forgotten piece of roadside history. The strange little empire he built on vibration and pocket change mostly went the way of the neon and the kidney-shaped pools, out with the tide of the old American road. And yet, the way these wonderful old things always seem to, it refuses to be completely forgotten. There are still a handful of proud old motels out there, the kind that lean into their vintage roots, that keep a working Magic Fingers box bolted to the nightstand on purpose, just so a traveler can do the thing their grandparents did, drop in a quarter and feel the bed come alive. Collectors hunt down the old coin boxes and restore them, and for anyone who ever lay on one as a child, all it takes is the sight of that little gray box to bring the whole thing flooding back. The hum, the rattle, the smell of the motel room, the long highway behind you, and the whole summer still ahead. Because that, in the end, is what the Magic Fingers bed really was. It was never about the vibration. It was about the feeling of being on the road, of stopping for the night somewhere new, of a country full of little motels, each trying to give a tired family one small, silly, wonderful moment of comfort for the price of a quarter. They don't really make things like that anymore. But for 30 years, you could buy 15 minutes of magic off the nightstand, and a whole generation of Americans never forgot the feeling. So tell me down in the comments, do you remember the Magic Fingers bed? Did your folks ever hand you a quarter to drop in the box? Or did you lie there as a grown traveler and let it buzz away the miles? Tell me where you were and what motel it was, because I have a feeling a lot of you remember that hum just as clearly as I do, and I would love to hear your stories.